Serious, men who have been falsely accused of sexual assault. How did you cope with it? I posted this on another question before, but it's relevant here as well. When I was in high school, I went to go pick up a friend's girlfriend before all meeting up at a party. Very long story short, found out a number of days later she told everyone when I was over at her house that I tried to force myself on her. Didn't even like the girl. I just tolerated her cause she was my friend's girl. Everyone believed her and no one would talk to me or hang out with me for the rest of my high school life. Ended up becoming an introvert with severe social anxiety as a result. That still affects me to this day. So, you could probably say I didn't cope with it. Looking back, it was probably the single biggest thing that contributed to what I would consider some of my negative personality traits. I saw her years later. She was a cashier at a shoe store. She recognized me and tried to chat with me like we were old friends. So either she forgot that she basically ruined my life, or didn't think it was a big deal. When I first recognized her, my immediate reaction was almost of fear and extreme discomfort. I told her then and there what she did was a horrible thing and it severely impacted my development as a young adult. I don't think she even responded. She just stood there in shock and I walked away. It's like she has no clue. Frick. I hope she publicly admits to everyone on a very public platform that what she did was fricked and that she genuinely apologizes. I was a senior in high school, male, and right after graduation I had a girl claim I raped her when I in fact did the opposite. I told her I would not take her virginity and it made her very mad. Her friends started calling me a rapist and then I moved to college out of state. I constantly feared that a cop would show up and arrest me for something I never did. This was 15 years ago. She did contact me years later and apologize and thank me for being civil. I mean, people react to crap differently, but it screwed with my head for years. That must have really fricked with your head. Hopefully you semi-recovered from that. She wasn't the smartest. I had a text message from her saying pay me £200 by the end of today or I'll tell the police you raped me. Just kept the text and showed it to the police when they showed up at my work. Still have the conversations on my phone archive and a copy on my computer. You don't. It sticks with you. I am forever hyper cautious of females and how I come off to them. I'm so afraid my words or actions will be twisted and used against me. Messed around with a fellow soldier. She tried to use me as a scapegoat. She was getting in trouble. And if you get into a sexual assault investigation, the victim moves units, thus leaving behind all her disciplinary problems and getting a fresh start. Half my unit saw me as some sort of predator. The other half actually knew me and just tried to keep me alive. They tore me out of the skies. A valuator. Took away my rank. Treated me like freaking garbage. And booted me out. Jokes on them. Their horrible treatment of me got me a solid FVA Benny percentage. So frick them. Frick her. But thanks for paying my mortgage for the rest of my life. Sad and scary it took someone with big authority to stop it, rather than the process itself. My ex-GF told the cops that I've raped her, which I didn't. After we both told the story, the cops believed me. They said that I had a lot more details and she repeated herself and lied. It still haunts me. She was my second GF and something like that hurts. I broke up with her and this accuse came up a few weeks after the breakup. It was 1.5 years ago. I really hope that I can get over it, but it's hard. It's freaking hard. Things like that change you. Like I couldn't build a romantic relationship since then because of this feeling. The feeling that she'll do the same. Pretty disgusting how people are able to just lie about rape. Sorry that happened to you. Went to a therapist. It really helped. I was lucky my story never made it as far as the law or the newspapers. My girlfriend told her friends, and my name ended up scrawled on a wall. It didn't get any more developed than that. Hey man, I'm so sorry. I am glad you started or did go to therapy. Good luck with future healing. Again, sorry that happened to you. I thought she was my best friend. I guess senior year of high school she decided that she didn't want to be my friend anymore. I got pulled into the disciplinarian's office by surprise. told all the charges leveled against me. Told that the sole reason I'm not getting expelled is one of the school counselors staked her career on this being a fake accusation and that it's completely out of character for me. I was also told that if I ever told my side of the story I would be immediately expelled and denied graduation. As a result, she was able to spread lies about me while I wasn't allowed to defend myself, and I spent the last trimester as an outcast. It ruined me. I couldn't trust anyone. I was too depressed to apply for scholarships or do college applications. It took years for me to get back on any semblance of moving ahead in life education wise, but I still have very few IRL friends. Was working at a business where my parents were management and they hired a new secretary. I was asked to show her around the business, something that I have never done before. She basically told my parents that I made a move on her. I didn't, and it was sexual harassment. My parents then gave her some work perks so she wouldn't make an official complaints. Paid for her after hours study. I didn't know about any of this for years because I was a traveling salesman and rarely in the office. When I found out what had happened, a lot of things then made sense. Like why I was treated so coolly by our new secretary even though I had bent over backwards to make her welcome at the company. That was 30 years ago and it still hurts even though I've gone over our interactions 100 times in my head and still can't work out why she would say that. And to say it to my parents makes it 10 times worse. Not very well. I got so stressed half my hair fell out and I never tried to ask another woman out ever again. The only women I've been with since then asked me out and those relationships never lasted long. Dude, I am really sorry to hear that. I hope you can absolutely prove to everyone you ever meet that you didn't do it, and I hope that justice will come upon the accuser. I was accused of sexual assault by 3 girls in high school, 2 twins and a friend of theirs. They accused me of groping them under the table, fondling their breasts, and telling them I'd rape them. I'd been openly gay for 4 years. I have autism so often miss red flags and I apparently missed one of the girls flirting with me for over a year, which made her angry. She also asked me if I'd have sex with my younger brother, which I ignored because I just assumed she's weird. They got the police involved after telling the school what I had apparently done. I was banned from being in the same room as them. This occurred during my final exams, which caused problems. They would often walk into the room I was in to force me to leave, which happened during lunch a lot. They also told everyone publicly that I raped them, which meant I was fully isolated. I had to rate tears, which meant if someone sat next to me my knee often hit people. The girl sat next to me a lot and said I would knee her sexually. I finished my exams and went to college at our local capital city. I studied healthcare but was unable to continue as the police banned me from working with vulnerable people. They ended this after the investigation finished a year later, but always sent writing to the placement saying I was a rapist in such a way as to not officially say it, which meant I had to give up nursing studies. I got threats of assault at the college because one of the girls attended a course there. She told people I raped her and my younger brother, which meant I had to leave. I changed my identity and appearance as much as was possible and moved to the city. I tried to kill myself a few times but failed, thankfully. I don't socialize and live in a hostel following homelessness. I'm currently waiting for trauma therapy in a couple years. I'm much better now than I was and don't have to work, thankfully, so can focus on just being alive. Ultimately, there is no recourse. In the UK, there is nothing someone like myself can do, as we cannot take them to court as we are not the victims and I had no obvious financial loss. The frick you say? You lost the career you wanted, were threatened with assault, and were forced to leave your support structure, leading to homelessness. I'd start suing the heads of the nursing school and whoever wrote the placements. They can start the stomping around then. I had a girlfriend at 29 Palms Base who I thought I was really into. Long story short, she was NCIS undercover, married with a child. I didn't know what legit divorce papers looked like, so when she showed me some official looking stuff I took her word for it. After I found out I broke up, but she didn't want me to leave, so she called my command and said I raped her and beat her child. At first I was torn up over it, but then said frick her, I am not going down without a fight. Spent the next couple weeks slowly warming up to her finally getting back together. She offered to drop charges. Then I asked over text why she lied and she admitted it, trying to be sweet, saying she was just upset. Then I reported it to her CO. who I am not supposed to know because NCIS. And that was it for me. I heard later her husband divorced her. She has no custody of her kids and she did a fair bit of jail time. Only thing that bothers me is, did I go too far? IDK, but if I was convicted falsely of rape my life would be over. It feels like I chose to ruin her life over mine, which I think shouldn't feel selfish but it does. She got what she deserved. It wasn't selfish at all. You didn't ruin her life. She did. Throwaway account. It was terrifying. My first ever girlfriend decided that she didn't need to break up with me before she started dating other guys. Obviously a crappy thing to do to someone, but she was desperate to find a way, anyway, to make it my fault and to justify why she left me for someone else the way she did. She tried claiming that we were never actually dating. She tried claiming that I was abusive. And apparently as she was fishing around for reasons to find one that gave her the most sympathy, she claimed to some of her friends that I had attempted to rape her although she had managed to escape. All of these accusations were entirely false. This happened when I was a freshman in college, and she was a senior in high school. The most immediate effect was that suddenly the majority of my friends and acquaintances wanted nothing to do with me. I had no idea why until I finally heard what she was accusing me of doing. As always, a lie travels 5 times around the world before the truth can come out. I was expecting at any time for the police to come arrest me and that would be the end of my life. There would be no witnesses, no physical evidence, just her word against mine if it were to go to trial. Eventually she finally settled on the we were never really dating narrative and abandoned the attempted rape narrative. I'm guessing the first one is a simpler lie than the second one, which would require her to create a much more intricate, detailed lie involving times, places, actions, etc. that she would have to remember and be consistent with, and that would be plausible to have happen, and avoiding obvious alibis on my part. This was over 20 years ago, and while I've suffered no direct effects to my life or career, it still gets me worked up to think about it. I have no friends from my hometown. I don't receive invitations to my high school reunions. I only visited to see my parents, and since they moved away I've never been back. As far as coping, well, it took me a long time before I took a chance to date again. I did not date anyone all through college and only lost my virginity after I graduated. If there was a situation that was leading towards me being intimate with a woman, I usually ran away. My story is not happy, but really I avoided some of the worst things that could happen. Ironically enough, I now live not far from Maryville, Mo and the Daisy Coleman case, which is the most heartbroken I've been in a while. My story is somewhat sad. Hers is endlessly tragic. I was at a frat party in college. I met a girl, and she and I made out and got pretty friendly on the sofa in the game room. I never even got her name. Then 2 weeks later I saw her again at a house party. We hung out and got along great. We got drunk sitting by a fire chatting. It was great. We decided to leave and go back to my room. We sat in my room just talking a while. Then we went to bed, both naked, but being we were drunk as heck, we decided to just sleep. The next morning, we awoke together. We laughed about how we didn't even screw. I walked her back to her room, and she gave me her number. We'd be seeing each other again. She didn't answer my calls. I only tried 2 or 3 times before giving up. I did not see her again for about a month. Then I saw her at a party again. "Hey, Sarah," I said. She rolled her eyes at me, and her friends drug her away spitting venom at me. Oh, well, I thought. She avoided me, so I avoided her out of civility. About an hour later, one of my friends pulled me aside. "Hey, man, don't get mad. I am not accusing you, but you need to know that Sarah girl is telling everyone you raped her in your dorm room. Yeah, WTF. What the frick indeed." I was once at a conference for young nurses which included a drama show about care home abuse. I wasn't a young nurse, but I was friends with one of the actors in the show. I sat behind one girl who laughed every time my friend came on, who was playing a disabled character who was being abused. Everyone around her was annoyed by her behavior, and after the show I tapped her on the shoulder and told her that she should rethink her career choice. Later on, whilst waiting around at the end of the show, Her tutor came over to me and said that the girl had accused me of touching her inappropriately. I told him what had actually happened and, luckily, I had about 8 other people with me who had also come to the show, and they had all seen what had happened. Later on, when retelling this story to others, it was suggested to me that I should have contacted her college and made a counter-complaint, as it is possible that she has made false accusations against people who have annoyed her in the past. Considering how quickly she went to making the accusation against me, I was lucky. My accusation happened when I had plenty of witnesses. However, had it happened without witnesses, I might have lost everything. I was a drama teacher who also worked in youth theater. If there were even slight doubts about my conduct, no one would have hired me. I was falsely accused of rape among 2 other men. The girl accused me, her psychiatrist and a former colleague of hers. The police file was so thick, the investigation was too hard to pursue. It was a year after I've met up with the girl when she pressed charges. I was called in for interrogation, and after a 3-hour talk with the police officer, he pointed out that I was almost free because he knew the girl had mental issues. The only thing I had to do was to delete her nudes. I didn't have any. She showed me some on her phone. I didn't even touch her cause I don't stick my D in crazy. Her psychiatrist got out easy cause her charges were based on misconduct on his part. She was kept in the hospital for 3 days, as the procedure demanded, after her attempted suicide, and she didn't like that, and so pressed charges for attempted sexual assault, because they searched her for objects before checking her in. Her colleague was the only one who had sex with her. She didn't feel pleasure and so rated him out to the police, admitting it was consent but didn't feel good. At the end she got a fine, for abusing police time or something like that. Sorry for my English. This will be buried somewhere at the bottom, but I needed to add my story. It happened twice, and I was lucky in both cases. I was in college. The first time was the girl I dated who I broke up with. She was very upset that I broke up with her and threatened to say that I raped her if I didn't take her back. I told a trusted professor about this right away before she went public with it. Turned out she was bluffing and she never went public. But it still haunts me how she laid it all out, how no one would believe me, how her being a women's studies major would give her special credibility, and so on. The next one really haunts me, even though technically she didn't accuse me of rape. She was a friend of a friend. She had begun hanging out with my circle of friends pretty regularly and I thought she was funny and cool. I had no idea she had a crush on me. Well, she did, and evidently she got mad that she was sending me signals that I wasn't picking up on. At any rate, one day I go to get my mail and her friends are all clustered around giving me death stares. I say hi to her and she just stares at me. Okay. Later on, a friend of mine says she is saying that we slept together and that I won't talk to her now, or something. Again, luckily she didn't technically characterize this completely fabricated sexual encounter as rape, but still, I was floored, and the fact that she could just make something like that up whole cloth felt like a threat, like a further fabrication was definitely possible. It hovered like a cloud over the rest of the year. Thankfully that was the year I graduated. Strange postscript to that one. I ran into one of her friends a few years later and she was really nice to me, like overly nice to me. I thought it was pretty odd given how things were left with me being treated like the Antichrist. And then a few months after that I got a letter in the mail from my accuser apologizing for making up that story about me all those years ago. It was essentially like an AA style confession. She said she struggled with drug and alcohol dependence, and she was getting clean, and that she also had mental health issues, and that all those things factored into her making up a story about me when she felt she couldn't just approach me about liking me. While I definitely appreciated this confession and apology, it also really underscored the frightening amount of power she had over me for no reason other than she decided she wanted to have me in one way or another. It was really terrifying. Bro, that sucks, bro. Don't worry about getting buried, you're the 5th result for me. I can't even imagine the pain you went through. Kept all the proof that we were dating for 6 months, and sent it to everyone I possibly could. Nothing but incoming calls from her, texts, blanked out nudes she sent me, etc. My reputation was not only saved but strengthened and hers was ruined. I still haven't dated anyone a year and a half later. Like B, we were in law school together. Lucky I didn't destroy you in lawsuits because I just wanted to move on. Unfortunately, you're pretty much guilty until proven innocent. The school got involved, but a notice of pending litigation from the firm I was working at back then made them back off right quick. I do regret not suing the school, but honestly I completely get it when clients tell me I just want it over with. Sympathize with them a lot more, and I'm much more vigorous in criminal defense. I wasn't accused, but I still have the occasional panic attack when I think how close my life was to being screwed. I'd been in a bad place at the time, had broken up with a girl I was saving up to buy a ring for, then had a quick and painful rebound relationship that ended quickly. So when a co-worker and I started to spend a little too much time together, we got close. We started dating and having sex. Anyway, this girl had serious medical issues, and some mental ones as well. So she decided that she could probably get some money out of the company by exposing me for sexual harassment. She asked a mutual friend how to best go about that. Mutual friend very possibly saved my life. She told her she doesn't go through with it, and if she does, she will immediately call the police and report her for filing false allegations against me, and would even testify on my side if I decided to sue her for it. That got her to shut up real quick. We broke up and thankfully she left the company a few weeks later. However, I was always super cautious around her. And the real irony, and yes I was an idiot, is that once she quit the company and seemed to be doing better mentally, I decided to hang out with her once. I had a new girlfriend at the time. Long story short, I hauled her drunk butt home and put her to bed, passing out myself fully clothed after a while cause I was babysitting her so that she didn't choke on her own vomit. She was very drunk. I come to hours later with her mouth on my dong. She knew I had a girlfriend. And yeah, I tell that second half of the story sometimes and most people just laugh. Flip the genders and the guy would be in jail for felony sexual assault. But because I'm a guy, it's just a funny story. And yeah, I tell that second half of the story sometimes and most people just laugh. Flip the genders and the guy would be in jail for felony sexual assault. But because I'm a guy, it's just a funny story. Dang, you're right. It's effed up, but you're right. I hope you never had any more contact with her after that, because she would surely F your life up if you maintained contact with her. Not sexual assault but domestic violence. Honestly, the only coping mechanism is understanding fully what's happened to your life and figuring out a way to make things work. I won't go into depth of my situation, but it can be very difficult. Just don't fall into the substance cycle and make every day worth it. Not quite accused of rape. She was more dramatic than that. What she did was shake and cry whenever I'd enter a room. She'd run out crying and people would chase after her and ask what was wrong. And she'd basically say I just can't be around him. Not after what he did to me. And then refuse to ask any questions and basically fall into a crying puddle. She did this for a solid year. I tried to basically be polite about it and say that we'd sort of dated for about a week and it wasn't working, so I broke it off. Which is the least embarrassing for her version of the absolute truth. Finally, when people started basically assuming I'd raped her, I had to tell the whole winding tale of how she told me she wanted to be frick buddies, and then begged me to do all sorts of super kinky BSDM stuff. And when I agreed and did a lot of very outside the norm things to her, she confessed that she'd fallen in love with me and wanted to be my live-in sex slave. I basically told her I didn't want that, and even though she offered to just live in my house and let me otherwise date and live normally, with her just being a live-in sex slave, I still just didn't find her particularly attractive. Had only done what I did out of a mix of pity and trying to be a good friend. She broke down and felt so embarrassed and ashamed she didn't want to be around me, which I understood, but she could have thrown out the occasional "he only did what I begged him to do," and I'm only upset because after doing it, he didn't feel the same way I did. It was a mess, and I just came away feeling bad for her, but at some point I had to defend myself. Wouldn't be surprised if she was actually raped as a kid and needs to be treated, possibly institutionalized if she's this bad. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.